Meeting will now come to order. This is the January 22nd, 2013 meeting of the Town of Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. We're going to begin by going into executive session. First item, meeting minutes, January 8th, 2013. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Jacobs has moved to approve. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Commissioner Wagner has seconded. I have one change to the minutes, I think because of a copy error. Under public hearing, 893 Sasco Hill Road, it's cut off after the item. I think it needs to state who presented the application to the commission and the fact that we left. Mr. Fitzpatrick presented, and we did not close the hearing on that Sasco Hill Road item. Yes, Commissioner Suter?
I also asked that 893 Sasco Hill Road enter a note that Commissioner Suter recused himself from sitting on the application.
Thank you. Are there any other additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes with those changes signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Next item, new application to recommend to public hearing, 50 Chatham Road, re-subdivision application of 50 Development LLC and Patricia Sheehy for 3 lots in an R2 zone. Mr. Wendt?
Yeah, this is an application that should be familiar to you that was denied several months ago. They've redesigned it and resubmitted it to attempt to address your reasons for denial.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this item to refer to public hearing?
Question for staff.
Commissioner Jacobs has a question to the staff.
When was the time we heard the last one? Is this the proper time allotted in between, and this is significant changes so that we would consider this overriding the rule on how long?
There is no deadline or time span for which they can submit a revised application. I mean, it will ultimately be up to you as to whether the changes they've made are significant enough to warrant a different outcome. But there is no timing requirement for resubmittal. There's no...
Would you say? I'm sorry.
For the subdivision.
For the subdivision, thank you.
Statutory time.
I didn't hear what you said, thank you. The big box. You have to. You're like the guy on what's that TV show? Home Improvement. Any other questions? Is there a motion on this item to refer to public hearing? Thank you. Commissioner Wagner's moved to refer. Is there a second? Commissioner Suter has seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of referring 50 Chatham Road re-subdivision application to public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Matter will go to public hearing. Next item, we have one item under old business, 41 Bronson Road, re-subdivision application of Sharon Turner for 2 lots in an A zone. Public hearing was January 8th, 2013. We have until March 14th, 2013. Present with LeClaire, Jacobs, Sid, Kennelly, Suter, Wagner, Alessi, and Parker. I should note that Commissioner Parker is on this item until... Actually, Commissioner Barrett was not here, so Commissioner Parker and Alessi are both on this item. Hey, that's not correct. Hold on a second. We only have Commissioner Barrett who's on the item. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6.
Kennelly's not here.
Oh, Kennelly's not here, right. So Commissioner Alessi is on for Commissioner Kennelly this evening, and Commissioner Parker will be on for Commissioner Barrett, who did not hear the item.
Give you a quick overview of what
Please.
was presented at the public hearing. The property is located at 411 Bronson Road. The property currently includes a single-family home and contains a total of 23,275 square feet. The property is located in our residential A zone, which includes a lot area requirement minimum of 9,375 square feet. The intent of the application is to remove the existing single-family home, subdivide the property, and to construct 2 single-family homes. The lots would be, or proposing to be, 12,371 square feet and 10,958 square feet respectively. The town, as reported to here in the town conservation department, has confirmed that no inland wetland approval is necessary. The property has sanitary sewer and public water available to it. As indicated at the public hearing, the developer will submit an application for tree planting and/or removal to the town tree warden for all trees required that are, and also existing in the town right-of-way. And then there was some some discussion about proposed sidewalks. The applicant has submitted, as per our regulations, a written request that the requirements for concrete sidewalks on the Broad River Lane be waived by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The applicant is not requesting a waiver of sidewalks on Bronson Road, and will install sidewalks as per request of the town engineering department. There is a section of the existing sidewalk on the south side of Bronson Road, some distance away from this proposed location. And finally, just as described or outlined on the hearing, our section 4 of the subdivision regulations basically essentially states that the commission, upon written request by a three-quarters vote, may modify or vary the requirements for sidewalks if this requirement would result in a practical difficulty and unusual hardship, and as long as the purpose of the intent of the regs are secured. And also it goes on to state no waiver shall be granted that would have a significant adverse impact on adjacent properties or on the public health and safety. That essentially, Mr. Chairman, is what was presented at the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Devonshire. Is there a motion on this item? Commissioner Jacobson has moved to approve. Is there a second? Commissioner Parker has seconded. Any discussion? Commissioner Jacobson?
The neighborhood seemed to be in agreement with the developer on not having sidewalks within the cul-de-sac area, but the neighbors also were requesting a entrance stone pillar of some type. I would hope that we'd be able to do something in lieu of the sidewalks so that the neighbors would be getting what they would like on this.
Commissioner Wagner?
So on the whole, I think the application was well presented. It meets all of our regulations. I am not inclined to support the waiver of the sidewalks here. I don't believe that the applicant has met the standards that are in the statute. I mean, they didn't even try to make a case that it was a significant hardship. The main reason given was that they would prefer to have the grass going up to the street. You know, while there were some neighbors that seemed anecdotally to support the request for the waiver, there were repeated references to the street being very narrow, cars parked on the street, that there were many young children in the on the cul-de-sac in the area that had to walk down to Bronson Road for the bus stop. The neighbors talked that the reason that they wanted the pillars marking the cul-de-sac was because there was a high traffic volume, and that people used the street as a turnaround because it's the first one off of the next main artery. You know, the whole reason that we established the rule requiring sidewalks were for these reasons exactly. And you know, I don't think that the applicant has met the required standard. I think it would serve the purposes. The sidewalks would serve the purposes for which the regulations were enacted, and I'm not inclined to support that waiver.
Thank you. Commissioner Sutter?
Yeah, I gave some thought to the sidewalk issue, and I went to I gave some thought to the sidewalk issue in particular, and I researched our zoning regulations. In section 3.10 regarding sidewalks, it says sidewalks shall be installed along all new streets in residence A, B, and C, and design business and design industrial districts, and in pedestrian easements. The street in question, Broad River Lane, is not a new street. So it seems to me that there is no requirement to have sidewalks there. We do have discretion to require sidewalks, but it's in other districts, according to 3.10. So it seems to me that the applicant is not required to have sidewalks according to the regulations.
operating from, from the applicant's, I did not research that aspect of the regulation. I was operating from the applicant's statement and representation that they were required.
Right.
We do have discretion to require them, as Commissioner Suter just read.
That's correct. The applicant asked that they be waived, which would suppose that they would be required, at least in the applicant's mind. Take a quick look at this. 3.10? Or subdivision regs here.
Yeah,
Subdivision regs, yeah.
I don't have them with me.
Right, that's correct. It has the provision in other districts, the commission may require the installation of places deemed desirable by the commission. Staff have any comment on that?
Yeah,
Jeff?
past practice of the commission has been their interpretation of the sidewalk requirement is when you have a subdivision proposed that essentially is new lots fronting an existing road that did not have a sidewalk, that past practice was that they would review that for whether or not they would require sidewalks to there. There are examples in the past of the commission requiring sidewalks on existing roads. And again, the past practice of the commission, or at least their interpretation, was because these are new lots, that they felt it was appropriate to at least take a look at whether or not sidewalks would be appropriate for the street. I mean, just to cut to the chase on this, it's at your discretion. You do have a right under the regulations to not require them, and to require them, again, as I mentioned, is kind of a discretionary commission had done in the past. Again, their reasoning was that these are additional lots on an existing road, and if there were no sidewalks in place, they would review it for all the standards that are mentioned in the regulations of why sidewalks are required. The regulations do say what they do say. There's no question that the actual requirement for them is for new construction, but like I said, it's cut to the chase. It's at the discretion of the commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Suter?
I hear what Mrs. Vonchuk has said, and I do support the principle of consistency in applying our rules. On the other hand, it seems to me in studying this language, the clear language of the provision is that sidewalks only have to be installed on new streets. The word new applies to streets and not to new lots in residence A, B, and C, and only in those three districts. And then in design business and design industrial. But then it says, and in other districts, the commission may require the installation of sidewalks. So the discretion of the commission applies to districts other than residence A, B, and C.
Yeah, the last comment I'll make on this particular situation and why there probably, in my opinion, a difference between Bronson Road and the Cul-De-Sac Road is when the Cul-De-Sac Road was constructed, sidewalks were not required. They were not required, and that's why there are no sidewalks on this cul-de-sac now. I mean, there was a subdivision that created this approval that created this cul-de-sac initially anyway. So at that time, sidewalks were not required. Bronson Road, though, I think is a better example of a main thoroughfare that when you do add additional lots to it, I think your discretion is a little larger. But I mean, that's again, I think again the basic answer is it's been at the discretion of the commission. However, it is a decent point that when this cul-de-sac was originally approved, sidewalks were not required.
Thank you. Commissioner Alessi, Commissioner Alessi, and Commissioner Jacobs.
I can understand that we don't want to put new sidewalks in the cul-de-sac because it's already been there and established. But I kind of concur with Commissioner Wagner, just on the fact that there's young kids living in that court, and Bronson Road is a busy road. And the neighbors did come before us, and they did explain to us that there are kids in that cul-de-sac, young kids. They all have to get to their school buses, and I'm not inclined to not have a sidewalk in there and, God forbid, have an accident later on. So I'll be with Commissioner Wagner on this one, suggesting that we do put sidewalks in this cul-de-sac.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. I'll just note for the record, Commissioner Barrett has joined us, but he is not on this item since we've begun its discussion. Commissioner Jacobs.
In the past, I've always supported sidewalks. Part of the reason is when there's a major road and we're requiring sidewalks, there's always the possibility that we will have other lots come before us on that road so that we can require sidewalks with them, and it will start the patchwork quilt of sidewalks through the area. This cul-de-sac will not be, from what I can tell, any more subdivisions within it. Therefore, there will be no other sidewalks in it, and we are making a short piece of sidewalk on one part of the cul-de-sac and not the rest. That, along with the neighbors not wanting them, I don't see why we would be forcing them into that. I would say that with the waiving of the sidewalks, the developer will be saving a considerable amount of money, and would hopefully, we could, if the sidewalk waiver is approved, then require the pillars that they have requested as part of the condition of approval. But I would assume that we need to do a vote on the sidewalks first.
On that, I'll address it a few ways. First, I don't think that this commission can impose a condition of approval that people put pillars up. Question is, it's clearly not in our regulations, pillars. The question becomes, whose property are they going to be built on? The applicant does not own the southern side of this street where presumably one pillar would be placed. Otherwise, it would be, number one, town property, and one would have to go through that process. The neighbors themselves could always build their own pillars and get their own approvals, but we certainly can't impose a requirement of pillars. As to the sidewalk, I see I don't believe in waiving sidewalks. I live on a dead end, as you folks know, and we have sidewalks over the majority of the street, and I'm a huge believer in sidewalks for safety reasons, because I drive on the street every day, obviously. There's always kids walking, people walking dogs, and they're on the sidewalks. Little kids play on the sidewalks, they put lemonade stands on the sidewalks. They're just a public safety. They have a public safety purpose. Also on this street, it's not like we're having the sidewalks at the top end of a cul-de-sac that no one would ever walk on. These sidewalks are at the northwest corner of Bronson Road where it meets this. So these we heard about the children on the bus stop and all the cars zipping by. It's these same kids that are going to walk up to those houses, and they're going to walk on this sidewalk to the top, up the hill to the top of the cul-de-sac. I think that's a very good purpose for that sidewalk here. It walks the kids to the other lots home. And for those reasons, I wouldn't support a waiver of sidewalks at this location.
For those reasons, what?
I would not support a waiver of sidewalks. I agree with Commissioner Wagner, what he's articulated. The one thing I would suggest that before we're ready to vote, or I'll do it now, I'll make it easy. I'll just ask if the movement, I think it was Commissioner Jacobson, if you will make as a condition of approval the conditions set forth by the tree warden. We discussed that at the public hearing. Specifically, the developer will have to submit an application for tree planting and removal, as well as a landscape plan.
Yeah, that's fine.
And with the individual who seconded, Commissioner Parker would agree to that one condition, and then I will leave the commission, if someone wants to move for another condition as to sidewalks, they can. But I would not support that. Any other discussion by any member of the commission?
So an affirmative vote then on this item is to approve the plans as submitted with the requirement that the sidewalks be installed on both the side road as well as on Bronson Road.
That's correct.
And with the approvals of the tree warden.
That's correct, Commissioner Wagner, as you stated exactly. Any, Commissioner Jacobs?
So there will not be a single vote on the sidewalks, it would just be a vote on the entire project, is the way you're presenting it.
Well, unless the commissioner wanted to make a motion to amend the motion before us to include a sidewalk waiver, and then should he or she be able to get a second, we would then discuss it, vote on it, and see whether the motion would be so amended. I had the tree warden condition put in as a friendly amendment without necessarily the necessity of vote, since that's our routine practice. If you'd like to make a motion to waive sidewalks, you may.
And what is is it a majority or is it a supermajority?
Simple majority.
6 out of 7. You need 3/4. Well, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, waive sidewalks. That's right,
3/4 to
waiving
waive.
sidewalks. Yes. You need a supermajority to waive. Yes.
But not to, okay.
That's correct.
I appreciate Commissioner LeClaire's enthusiasm for sidewalks and devotion to sidewalks. Yeah, but on the issue of waiver, it seems to me we don't reach the issue of waiver if the statutes don't require them, if the regulations don't require them to have them in the first place. That's what I'm having trouble with.
May I address? Thank you.
Wagner.
I believe you're correct in that the vote is to include the requirement of the sidewalks in our discretion as a condition of approval, as submitted by the applicant in their plan.
But we don't have any discretion in those zones.
I believe that we did have discretion to require sidewalks.
Read 3.10, we don't have any discretion in those zones.
Did the applicant not include the sidewalks in the proposal?
In the presentation, they did.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm going.
Commissioner Wagner's position is that the applicant included them in the proposal. So with that, they are included in the item as presented and as before us, as Commissioner Wagner indicated. If someone want to remove them by the appropriate vote, they would have to move to amend the item before us to waive sidewalks on all or a portion of the subdivision, either on Bronson and or the other road. So is there any further discussion for Commissioner Parker?
Just a question. The applicant did agree to sidewalks on Bronson Road, is that correct? That's how
Well, they did
I
not ask for a
recall.
waiver for sidewalks there.
No, they agreed to install them, or?
They did not ask for a waiver of sidewalks for there.
There's a
difference.
distinction there, because
Yeah.
my understanding of the proposal was that sidewalks were included on Broad River Lane as well as Bronson. And there, in the presentation, there was a request that, for a waiver of the sidewalks on Broad River Lane.
Yeah.
So, you know,
The implication was they would be on Bronson.
correct.
Yeah.
They weren't asking for that to be removed from their application.
They're just asking for a waiver on Broad River.
That's correct, yes.
So do you want to restate where we are?
Sure. Where we are, we have the item before us, which is for the approval of re-subdivision application at 411 Bronson Road, with one condition appended to it, specifically that being the tree warden condition. The developer submits an application for a tree planting or removal, as well as a landscape plan to the tree warden. The application includes the requirement of sidewalks on both roads, on both the side road into the Cul-De-Sac as well as Bronson Road. And that's what's before the commission right now for a vote. Absent any amendment or further motion. Or is there any further discussion? Questions, anyone? Hearing none, all in favor of applicant, you move those?
The numbers don't work.
Okay.
All you have to do is count.
All in favor of application 411 Bronson Road, re-subdivision application of Sharon Turner for 2 lots in an A zone, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstentions, Commissioner Suter abstains. Item carries. Next, we go on to compliances. We have 3 items on the compliance calendar. The first is from Tim's Sign and Lighting. It's for 2047 Post Road East, otherwise known as 2047 Post Road, I believe, for an overall sign plan. And this is the new gas station at the corner of South Pine Creek, North Pine Creek, and the Post Road. Mr. Wendt?
Yeah, this is the new gas station being built at that intersection. The plan that you had before you when this building was approved called for 2 channel letter wall signs, one similar to what's proposed on the front facing the inner part of the lot with wheels. There was a similar sign shown, I think, for illustrative purposes on the north elevation that faces out to the post road. What they'd like to do is keep the channel letter sign that they had originally proposed facing inward on the site, and for the sign that faces the post road, have a sign that's basically a internally illuminated cabinet for identifying 2 of the food purveyors inside. Should you see fit to approve that, it would be required that the background of those signs be opaque, such that only the copy illuminates.
Sir, we're in executive session. How it works in Fairfield, you don't get a chance to talk for these compliance. As part of our compliance calendar, we have everything you've given us, and we just do this absent. I appreciate it, but we can't. Thank you. Mr. Wendt. Thank you. Is there a motion on this?
You're on now.
Yes.
I'll move to approve it.
The commissioners are on it. Barrett, Jacobson, Suter, myself, Jacobs, Wagner, and Commissioner Alessi for Commissioner Kennelly. Thank you.
So I'll move to approve it.
Commissioner Barrett has moved for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Commissioner Jacobson seconded. Any discussion? Commissioner Jacobs?
Just want staff to tell us that it meets the size requirements. That it's
Yes.
perfect, thank you.
Any further discussion by any member of the commission? Yeah, the question is regarding LED illumination under our new regulations we just passed last week.
Right. The LED reference here would be behind it wouldn't be an exposed LED, it's LED behind a plastic cover.
And we have a good schematic of that. I think it was the Hertz application, which we'll get to in a minute, that shows how these new LEDs are worked for these illumination fixtures, as opposed to the LED, which we do not allow. We should probably, with this applicant, as I think of this, as well as anyone coming before us with signage, provide maybe a copy or some discussion or instructions to them regarding our new sign regulations, so we don't have enforcement issues the moment these businesses open with the LED that we voted that we do not allow in the windows anymore and those types of things, so that we could hopefully save on having to enforce against these businesses. Please. Yes, Commissioner Wagner.
For staff, in my copy, there are some that are crossed out here on the bottom.
Right.
Can you explain that?
Well, I think what that represents is that the Nathan's sign is going to have a yellow background and the Blimpie sign is going to have a white background, but in either case, they have to be masked so that when they illuminate, only a copy illuminates and not the background. That's a provision of our regulations that if you're going to approve this type of sign, should make a condition of approval that only the copy can illuminate in the background of the sign, whatever color it is, has to remain opaque when it's illuminated.
So during the day, it will appear with the yellow background as the sign.
Correct.
And then at night, when it's illuminated, only the letters will actually be illuminated.
Correct.
And that's in compliance with our regulations.
Correct.
We need to amend the motion to make sure that
I
only
don't
the
think
letters
that
are
the
illuminated.
application states that's in the letter.
It says that.
Well, I'm reading it, both signs are of aluminum cabinets with high output lamps and advanced ballasts. So the way I'm seeing is the whole sign illuminates, not the lettering.
Right.
It
Our
says-
regs don't permit that to occur. That's why we're suggesting that if that type of sign is going to be approved, the illumination be limited to copy only and not the background.
Condition of approval.
As a condition of approval, right, okay. So, because the faces in the cover letter, it says the faces are
Right.
Lexan with translucent vinyl, which would indicate that that they would be illuminated.
I would
see.
agree.
That doesn't meet our regulations.
So that's not in compliance with the regulations.
I would agree.
Yes, all right.
So the sign that they're approving, I'm sorry, Sharon, is it a 6-foot sign or basically a 12-foot sign? Because I'm looking at the north elevation, it's showing a 12-foot sign.
It's essentially 2 6-foot cabinets butted together to make a 3 by 12 sign.
Is it necessary that we make a condition of the approval? We can't approve something that's contrary to our regs, I don't believe, so.
Nope.
I think we should make clear on the record that what we are approving are the signs as provided pursuant, or as long as they comply fully with our regulations.
Right.
And if they can come up with a way to make the Nathan sign have a yellow background in the daytime and not be illuminated at nighttime, they may do that. Otherwise, they'll have to come up with a different way to illuminate this sign or to change the color so it's not yellow during the daytime.
Well,
Or even then, it might not work.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jacobs, will that even work, what they're proposing? A
No.
Lexan translucent
What you're looking at is
vinyl?
really a flat Lexan with a light behind it on the whole sign.
Yeah, that's going to light up.
So the whole
background.
thing is lighting up.
So it's not going to work even with their
It can be, they
proposal.
can, well, again, you either deny it if you're not satisfied that they can accomplish that, and let them come back with a revision to the design. But there are ways you can treat, essentially it's a sheet of plexiglass with vinyl graphics on it. On the back side, you can put masking material on it so that the light doesn't come through it when it's
That's
Right.
true,
illuminated.
that's true.
so my issue is not with that. I think that we can approve with conditions. What I don't think that we can do is approve it so long as it is consistent with our regulations. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? So, you know, the proposal doesn't include one aspect which would make it compliant in all respects, which is that only the letters be illuminated, you know, at night. So I think we would need to make that a condition of approval.
Who made the motion on this? Was it Commissioner?
I did.
I
I'd be willing to modify it. It is kind of weird that we have an application for us, and actually on its face, the words of it don't comply, as you pointed out, to regulations that were recently passed. So I'd hate to start
It's not going to work.
not applying those regulations. I mean, they could have written this so it did comply. It's almost like we're having to rewrite it for them.
That's
I'm a little
correct.
concerned about
Actually, we're
it like
designing a whole
that.
new sign.
Well, we are, well,
And I don't
we're
know if that's
designing the
really
sign
our
for
role.
them, you know.
To explain to them how it could be done, so.
I mean,
And I don't dislike the sign, but I don't want it, I don't want it illuminated, or to have them come back and say, well, this is what you
no,
approved.
I mean, we certainly don't want it to look like a, you know, a rest stop on the center of town. I mean, it's, you know, it's not what we want.
Maybe the other alternative is to make them come back with drawings that match what they're actually what it's going to look like day and night, since
Yep.
this is a complicated drawing. It's got different lettering, more than just the words Nathan's on it.
Yeah, and typically, the way that these signs appear are not in accordance with our new regulations.
We have the new
Typically, they
regula-
appear as fully illuminated signs at night.
And we do have the new regs we just passed, so perhaps that's a better course that we take, now that we're discussing it, is not to approve it till they submit signs that actually comply with our regs fully. So we don't have to sit here and design signs where, we'll be here all night if we start designing people's signs for them.
They should come back with something that complies, I would agree with that. Now the more that I think about it, I would agree with that.
So we have a motion that's been moved and seconded before us. Is there any further discussion before we vote? If we vote yes, it's approved. If we vote no, the applicant can come back as early as our next meeting with a revised sign plan that complies with the regulations. And can look at the record we've made here to determine what we're recommending. So with that being said, all in favor of the application of 2047 Post Road for an overall sign plan, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Abstentions?
Nay.
Item is rejected unanimously. Next item, 427 Stilson Road, application of J. Braun for an overall sign plan in the design commercial district. Mr. Wendt?
Okay, there are two boards on the floor in front of you. You did receive, hopefully, an email with an attachment from me that modifies this proposal as originally submitted. Basically, what's proposed here are four 2x12 carved wall signs that are not illuminated. So there is no illumination proposed here. The letter describes, if you're familiar with this building on Stilson, it's one property in from Black Rock Turnpike. The parking is at the rear of this building. The entrances are to the rear. And they've had some difficulty in wayfinding, so they're looking to have some tenant ID on the front wall. And they're proposing four 2x12 carved signs. In the panel to the right, and I'll pick those up, move them if you can't see them, are just shown as kind of illustrative examples of the style of sign that they're proposing.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this?
I'll move to approve.
Commissioner Jacobson has moved to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Jacobs is seconded. Commissioner Barrett's discussion?
I would defer to Commissioner Jacobs.
Do you want to say
They wanted to talk first.
Yes, I think these signs are very appropriate. They look nice on the building, and I will vote to approve them.
Commissioner
You
Jacobs?
go next, and then I'll go.
Okay, I'll go. Yeah, I recall, especially with the Vita dialysis, them coming up with a sign that we denied a couple of years ago. It was a big wall sign. I drive past this building a lot, and I have to say, it could probably use some more signage, and the signs they proposed are, they're attractive, much more so than what I recall the last application being. I realize this abuts a residential neighborhood, so, lighting or anything like that would be really out of the question. But these signs, I think they do provide the necessary identification of the tenants in the building, and driving by it, it really is a nondescript building now. So I don't think they hurt the appearance of the building now. So I'd be inclined to support it.
Commissioner Jacobs?
I think we need to make it very clear that they're not to put any lights under these signs to light them or from the ground up towards them. But these signs will help with the building. We can't require what I'm going to say next, but it's just an opinion, an educated opinion, that their pole sign wouldn't hurt to match the colors from the wall signs to the pole sign. Of course, we cannot have anything to say with that. That's an approved sign, just an opinion. I think it would look much nicer if the pole sign and the wall signs matched. But I see nothing wrong with these signs, and it would probably help and people finding it. And they also, this type of a sign that they're proposing, the dark background with the gold leaf lettering, fits with the type of building, the Federalist style building. So I think it's very appropriate.
I had one question to staff. The email that we were provided with the pictures that are in front of us is a different picture that was provided in the packet, which is different than also what was presented in the narrative. That's very symmetrical, what was provided to us. It has four equal signs placed equidistant under windows, and it keeps to the symmetry of the building. What they've actually asked for and provided in the original application is not symmetrical. It has a large dialysis sign on the right side and three smaller ones on the left. Do you know what they're actually asking for?
Yeah, they've amended that to the second letter that was the subject, and I've got hard copies of that if you want it, but I scanned it and emailed it because it revised it after the packet was delivered. It's that.
It is symmetrical. I want to put that on the record. that it's the
Four 2x12 signs, yes.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Lessing.
In the letter we received from Mr. Braun and Mrs. Braun, it did say that there's additional space in the building available for lease. So the only question that I would have is, I like the signs, is if there is additional space and there are going to be additional tenants and we don't know how many, are we looking later on at a building that has 8 signs on it?
Well, they've reserved one of the 4.
So we're looking at a maximum of 4 signs on the front of the building?
That's what they're proposing.
If they ask for more, they'll have to come back to us.
It's clear they've asked.
Well, what's the proposal for signage on the building, or this proposal here for 4 signs on the building? Okay.
And they can always come back and want more, and we can deny it on the grounds that unless they come up with a whole new sign plan for the building. Just because we approve 4 doesn't mean they get to fill up
I
every
don't know if
space.
we were
We can-
approving for that design or this design, like you said, or what we were going
I think we are approving those 4 that are in front of us on the board, which is part of the record.
Okay.
The text may change on one of them because it says tenant name right now, and when they have their last tenant, but those are what we're approving. We are not approving the designs on the right side, I should note for the record. Some of them are illuminated. Some aren't even in Fairfield, I know. At least 2 of them really aren't Fairfield. Walpole and Fjord Fisheries. That's Westport. I understand what the design is what they're looking at. But we're not approving those designs. We're not approving the double signs. We're not approving, the lighting on them as well. We're approving only what they've asked for on the left, to our left. Any further discussion of this item by any member of the commission? Hearing none, all in favor, application 427 Stilson Road. The overall sign plan signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Next item, 653 Post Road, application of Michael LaFont for an overall sign plan. This is at the Hertz location.
Okay. You've got a series of colored photos here. The first 3 indicating the existing condition of the building on the Post Road, and then the next showing what they're proposing. What they're looking to do is kind of put new fascia panels on the front of this that are kind of those aluminum panels that many of the car dealers, I've got a sample of the material if you want to take a look at that. Just kind of reface the building in that material. The question here is what's part of the sign and what's not. And that's really, they're asking that the color scheme that they've chosen not be considered the sign, and that only the copy that they're proposing be considered the sign.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this we may discuss? Anyone? For discussion.
Motion to deny.
Commissioner Jacobs, we can still discuss it that way. Commissioner Jacobs has moved to deny. Is there a second? Commissioner Alessi has seconded. And I'll just begin by noting something with staff. I think you should listen carefully to what Mr. Wentz said. It was important. And that being, what is the sign and what is not the sign? And I think that's where Commissioner Jacobs is going with this.
Since I'm assuming that the color and the pattern on the building is given to them by corporate as part of their corporate ID, that in turn would then say that it is part of their sign just by the fact that they're trying to, the corporate is doing this as an ID for Hertz. That's telling me it's a sign. And if that, you're now looking at almost half the building or a third of the building as sign, which we don't allow, besides it being hideous.
And I would note that this reminds me of the discussion we had in Panera Bread at Black Rock Turnpike when they had that large green background shape that they said wasn't their sign because the letters were low enough. But ignore the background, just like we should ignore the golden arches. That's not really a sign, it's an architectural shape. What gets me here is if you look at photo 7, look at the new pole sign, the white and yellow. There's a shape of yellow on that. It's white with a yellow, and the yellow is swished to the right. That's obviously their sign, the background, the yellow and white, photo 7. If you look at the pole sign, that's obviously their sign. Look at the building on photo 4. It's the identical shape. That would indicate exactly what Commissioner Jacobs is saying. The building is turned into one, not one sign that says Hertz, but one 100 by 30-foot sign sitting on the post road. It's shocking. The entire building is turned into the biggest billboard I've ever seen. Commissioner Jacobs?
Also, on the pole sign, they're showing lights underneath the pole sign.
Lighting up.
They're not even saying that if they're pointing down to light the parking lot or up to light the sign. If they're
Well, it says they're lighting up to light the sign.
and if they are lighting up to light the sign, they don't meet our requirements.
Our new dark sky regulations, this would fly in the face of it when one has 4 spotlights shining up into the sky with no shielding. That's a problem.
It does a little of both. If you take a look at photo 5, you can kind of see the existing condition there on the pole sign. But I agree, as shown, if there's new lighting shining upward, it would not meet the new lighting.
The other thing you might notice is the entire building has or not the entire, the portion of the building with the yellow has lights all across the top, washing the entire side of the building or the sign in that bright yellow color, adding to the entire
Well-
space being a sign.
Right.
Clearly lighting the sign.
Correct.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
No, I agree. I just think this would set a horrible precedent if we approve this too. It's so unattractive and I agree. It's just, we'll get other people coming and saying, well, our wall isn't the sign, it's the letters, and it's just not attractive at all.
Right.
I would also note
Commissioner Wagner.
that in the Hertz Corporation specifications on page 2, it clearly indicates that the sign detail is not just the lettering, but includes portions of the building.
Thank you. So there's a motion before us to deny this sign. So therefore, a vote in the affirmative, a yes vote, is a vote yes to deny. So if you want to deny this, vote no. If you want to approve it, I'm sorry, if you want to deny this, vote yes. If you like the sign and think it meets our regulations and want to approve it, vote no, and then we would have to have another motion for approval ultimately, I believe. So right now the motion is to disapprove, and it's a little unusual for the motions to be that way, but if you vote yes, you are voting yes to disapprove this. So yes is a no. That being said, all in favor of this application to deny the sign plan at 653 Post Road, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion is therefore, the sign is therefore denied. At this point, we have 3 items on public hearing. For members of the public, there's 3 items that we're going to be having public hearings on tonight. 893 Sasco Hill Road, 452 Brookside Drive, and 289 Hunyadi Avenue. At this point, we'll stand in a brief 5-minute recess to reconfigure the room for the public hearing, and then we'll go right to the public hearing. If you're here to speak on any of them, when the applicants are done, any member of the public will have time to address the commission from the podium on those applications. So we will stand in a brief recess. Beginning the public hearing. Again, this is the January 22nd, 2013 meeting of the Town of Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. 3 items are on public hearing. The first is 893 Sasco Hill Road, re-subdivision application of Bernard and Cynthia McDonald for 2 lots in a AAA zone. As you'll recall, we began this January 8th, 2013. Since that time, Commissioner Barrett, who is seated tonight, has listened to the tapes for the first hearing, and he will be participating. Also, I'll note for the record that Commissioner Suter has recused himself from this item and is not sitting with the Commission for this item. Mr. Fitzpatrick, good evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, for the record, my name is Bill Fitzpatrick. I'm an attorney in Fairfield with the law firm of Fitzpatrick, Frey, and Bologna. We have offices at 1150 Post Road. I'm here tonight representing the applicants. This matter, as the Chairman stated, was continued from the January 8, 2013 public hearing in order to permit the applicant to respond to Attorney Green's request for, quote, existing deed restrictions and easements affecting the property to be subdivided, end quote, and to permit Attorney Green the opportunity to review the sightline data that was submitted at the January 8th public hearing. I reviewed the title of the property, wrote a letter to Attorney Green confirming that I found no restrictions affecting the property and outlining the relevant easements. I'd like to submit a copy of that letter for the record, if I might.
Thank you. Thank you.
If I might reference the letter in relevant part, it just states that I found no deed restrictions affecting the property to be subdivided. My client's property is subject to a right-of-way in favor of the adjoining property to the east. That's to the rear. There are 2 dwellings on that parcel. The property is also subject to a possible easement, which is the way it's stated in the deed, which is an unusual use of language. Possible easement in favor of Snetco and UI, permitting the abutting owner of the property to the east to bring telephone and electrical services along the northerly portion of the premises. Actually, those electrical and telephone lines are in place and are in the right-of-way area. So really, nothing particularly material to our application. I'd also note that those easements are outlined on the plans you have before you and had before you from the start. At this point, I'd like to yield to the public and would reserve the right to rebut.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment? Attorney Green?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, staff. Once again, my name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport, the law offices of Green and Gross. I reside at 52 Stoneleigh Road in Fairfield. And I appear this evening once again on behalf of the Sasco Hill Neighborhood Association. I first want to certainly thank Attorney Fitzpatrick for providing the information that he provided in his letter. However, I just want to take a moment to review what exists and what is proposed. And while I have not had a lot of time to review a lot of the detailed information, what we have determined is this. As it exists right now, there is, first of all, the property as it exists has at present a dwelling that is being renovated and has or had an in-law apartment and another apartment in this building. It's my understanding that the applicant proposes to eliminate the in-law apartment and the other unit in that building. Attorney Fitzpatrick indicated that there is also there are 2 apartments existing within a residence also on this property. In reviewing the land records and in viewing in particular the assessor's records, there is no indication that they are zoning compliant apartments within this structure, which is shown as a single-family residence in the assessor's records, nor did a review of the records of the zoning department or any other records reflect any sort of permits or authorization to have 2 apartments within this structure. We've also learned that on the property to the east, there are presently 2 dwellings. There is what was originally, or what may be referred to as a caretaker's home. I think I saw it referred as that. That is a 1,700 square foot house located here. And here, and I'm not certain, and the applicant's drawings don't reflect it, but I believe this is one piece of property. There is an 8,700 foot home here. At present, the main house, the second structure on 893, this home and this home are all, as I understand it, served by this driveway that I've highlighted in yellow. I should offer a comment regarding this home, which again is on the eastern property. The land records reflect that in 1987 a variance was granted. The owner of record at the time was a David Chard and a Jean Chard, and there was an application for a variance, and the nature of the application was a variance of section 3.2.1 of the zoning regulations pertaining to permit use and number of dwellings per lot. and it was a variance for permission to allow an existing former caretaker dwelling as a separate dwelling premises in a AAA zone, and that was granted conditionally for 5 years as long as they own the house, whichever is the shorter, and that was a variance effective March 9th, 1987, and recorded in volume 799 at page 1189 of the Fairfield Land Records. There was then another notice of filing some 5 years or so later in volume 1136 at page 218. The nature of the application was a recertification of the variance granted in March of 1987, section 3.2.1 pertaining to number of dwellings per lot in AAA zone. The ruling was a recertification of variance granted March 5th, 1987, and it says granted conditionally for 5 years or as long as they own the house, whichever is shorter. And the effective date of that was May of 1992. So effectively, there was a variance granted to allow 2 dwellings on the lot for 5 years. That was then recertified for another 5 years. And after that, the land records are silent as to that dwelling, and I'm not sure what the status of the existence of that house is in terms of its compliance with the zoning regulations and the number of dwellings.
Commissioner Wagner?
When those variances were granted, the land was held in what name?
David Chard. The first, actually, I have a copy of the filing that I can submit for the record if that would be helpful to the commission.
Was it different or the same, as it is shown on the plans that we've got, David E. Chard? You mentioned at one point that there was a joint ownership.
The first owner of record listed in volume 799, 1189 is David Chard and Jean Chard.
So at some
And
point, that
then-
ownership separated?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Then the owner of record listed 5 years later, or in 1992, is just David Chard.
Okay.
So I raised these issues because, as I had indicated during the initial hearing, there was some concern on the part of my clients that this driveway seemed to be heavily used. And as we've investigated this, it's heavily used because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 residential units of some kind, a combination of apartments and dwellings that were using this single driveway. And so that obviously produced a fair amount of traffic, or an undue amount of traffic that you'd expect for a single driveway in this area. So what is proposed is, as I understand it, to subdivide the lot. And as I understand the proposal, once again, the main house would have 2 of the units eliminated, and there would still be 2 apartments as I understand it, although I'm not, again, I don't know that they legally exist. There is still a home there despite the status of these variances, which again, I'm not sure of. But effectively, there would still be, and with the proposed subdivision, I suppose, 5 units relying on a single driveway accessing out to Sasko Hill Road, and that continues to be of concern to my client. Now, I've provided the commission with copies of the subdivision regulations, specifically section 2.1.1.4, which defines a rear lot. And by virtue of this subdivision, it would appear that the applicant proposes to create a rear lot that would have, again, access to Sasko Hill Road, and apparently has 20 feet of access on Sasko Hill Road exclusive of this easement, would have the modified main house, and would continue to have 2 apartments. And so there is a rear lot created. And I bring that to the commission's attention because of the next section, which is 2.1.1.6, which talks about private access way for rear lot. And as I understand it, the access way, once again, that exists is a driveway that's shown highlighted in yellow on this drawing. and as I indicated, serves these 5 units. And section 2.1.6, and I would say that each of the 4 sentences of this regulation are important to this commission's review of the proposed subdivision. The first one says, the term access way shall mean a private way for vehicular traffic serving no more than a single interior residential lot. In this instance, the applicant proposes to create, as I had indicated, a rear lot, and the access way, by virtue of this driveway, would serve more than one lot, more than a single interior residential lot.
Mr. Parker?
My understanding, driving and walking around the property today, is that
Hey, what's the pointer? Sally? Mr. Parker?
this building is part of this property, that this property actually has a separate address. This carries a different street address.
I think,
This property.
I agree.
So, okay, so that is, I mean, this is almost like an accessory unit to this house.
That is correct. Yes, that's how I understand it. And the point is, however, that you have a lot, the lot to the east, as I've referred to it, which is 875 Sasko Hill Road. And then there's 893. And the effect is this lot, that you're correct, will have 2 dwellings on it, will be served by this driveway, and similarly 875 will be served by that driveway.
And the single family, single level, at this end of the property, that also has access?
Well, I believe that 875, if I may, that this is all one single lot.
Yes.
I believe it's a single lot here that has 2 homes on it, legally or not non-compliant, but it does presently have a home here and a home here. So you have 2 lots served by a single driveway that are both rear lots.
Could you go back to the variance? The variance you spoke of, what was being varied? What was the variance for? Was it access variance over this easement, or just...
No, it was the number of dwellings on a residential lot in a AAA zone, and under our regulations, as I understand them, there's no more than a single residential dwelling on a single residential lot.
So the two, we had your stickies, one up here and one down here. Maybe the other map's better. So you're saying these are the 2 houses that had the variance?
That's my
2 5-year
understanding.
variances, and the variance was because they're both located on the same parcel of land?
Correct.
And therefore, the question you raise is, are they now both illegal structures, or one of them an illegal structure? Because if they both had variances, that's it. One of them may be illegal.
Well, I didn't offer that to, and I'm not sure that this commission necessarily has to make that determination. I was trying to give the commission context in terms of the burden on this single driveway.
No, your point is also the 2 houses, I'll call them the illegal houses, for lack of a better term. I don't know
That
what-
seems
Well, you know,
Sure.
The houses on our right, those 2 houses that are subject to the variance, is there only access to a public thoroughfare coming up the driveway onto Sasko Hill Road?
Correct.
So while they may have a different address, they have a different number. They don't have a different address on South Pine Creek or some other
No,
street.
they don't.
They don't come down the back way.
No, they don't. That is their sole means of access is over this driveway.
Okay.
And just so that I can,
Hold on, one second.
if you'll bear with me for one moment, the regulations make reference to access way, not, for example, easement, not frontage and that sort of thing. So I think a fair reading of the regulation that I provided you refers to access way. I would refer to that as a driveway. And these rely on a single driveway for 5 units contained in 4 buildings.
So while the driveway is pictured here going down, I know there was discussion last time about maybe it went here at one point and you could actually run circles around the property. That's not correct, though.
It doesn't. I believe it ends right there.
So that is the sole. Thank you. Commissioner Neely, your question?
My question is, how wide is the driveway coming in?
Well, I was going to actually get to that, and as
Because there's a requirement in a AAA zone as to how wide it is, and if it isn't, then you need another driveway. So that's why I wanted to ask that question.
so I believe, if you'll bear with me, The driveway is, and I'm make sure I understand what is in mind here. It appears to be 18, I'm saying about 18 feet. And it's a 30 scale. I have a scale if anyone needs to verify that. But I will say this, and one of the things I will get into shortly, is the driveway gets extremely narrow towards the eastern end of the property to be subdivided. And that point, I think it's 9 or 10 feet where it winds around and accesses this 8,700-foot home.
So your argument is under 2.1.1.6, you may only have one interior lot that is accessed by a driveway.
Correct.
And in this case, the subdivision would have not only one interior lot with 2 structures on it with 3 dwelling units, it also would have the 2 other houses that you
On
just
another
spoke of,
interior lot.
on a different interior lot serviced by that same driveway. So we understand. Commissioner Wagner?
But that's really irrelevant, though. I mean, the number of homes, we don't even need to reach the number of homes on the lots, because
That's correct.
if I'm understanding existing conditions, the access way does only provide a means for vehicular traffic serving no more than a single interior residential lot.
Right at the moment, it provides access for 2 residential lots.
Well, no, because the existing,
They're 2 separate lots.
There's 2 separate lots.
And it's not one.
There's a lot here, and there's a lot here. This is, by definition, this will become a rear lot under that section. This is a rear lot, and this is a rear lot, and this is a single driveway.
I don't want to get to the proposed construction yet. We could go back to existing conditions.
Okay.
So existing conditions, the applicant right now has frontage on Sasko Hill Road.
This entire 893 has access on Sasko Hill Road and is not a rear lot.
Right. So the access way presently only provides a means for traffic to serve no more than a single interior residential lot, namely the Shard residence.
Correct.
Okay, so the present conditions are compliant with 2.1.1.6.
The present conditions
Are compliant with 2.1.1.6. You would agree with me?
I would agree that it's compliant with the first sentence of 2.1.1.6.
Okay, just in terms of, fine, that's fine. I don't care about the rest right now.
Okay.
Okay, and your point is that the proposed subdivision, then, proposed conditions, will create an additional interior lot,
Correct?
and therefore the access way will serve 2 interior lots, and that's not in compliance with the reg.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, the second sentence is, the second sentence,
This one? And this one.
and I think where you may be interested in the number of dwelling units is the second sentence of 2.1.1.6, which says, when, in the opinion of the commission, the 20-foot access way to a rear lot is sufficiently distant from a public street to make fire protection or any other public service to the home site difficult without entry upon such access way, then the access way shall be graded in accordance with a construction plan and profile approved by the town engineer.
Sorry.
Yes.
Can we go back to the first sentence for a moment?
Sure.
Thanks. It was just pointed out to me that the middle lot, we'll call it the middle lot,
The proposed map you're talking about?
yeah, the proposed conditions, that one there, that it actually extends over to Sasko Hill Road. It doesn't, it's not split directly up the middle. Can I have the pointer?
Yep.
So, this lot line actually goes up and over, right here.
That is correct.
So that the access way is actually then only serving, is it possible that access way is only serving one interior lot?
Well, that's a very good question. And the answer is that under the regulations, under your zoning regulations and under your subdivision regulations, there is a it is distinguished, the language distinguishes between easements and frontage and, on the one hand, and access ways. So so your point is, and I think the developer's point was, we have our 20 feet of frontage and our lot fronts on Sasko Hill Road. And then I would say that based on 2.1.1.4, that because the minimum square for this lot is not within the setback, that it becomes a rear lot. So this 20-foot wide leg gives the lot the necessary frontage, but that frontage and that access, and similarly, this easement access, you have two 20-foot corridors that create frontage, but the access is a driveway.
Got it. So therefore, it doesn't count as frontage, and therefore, it too should be considered a rear lot.
My point is, you have a single driveway serving two interior lots. And the fact that it's a separate issue as to whether it has necessary frontage or easement access.
I think what he's saying, Commissioner Wagner, is under 2.1.1.4, the definition of a rear lot, and when we're looking at what we'll call the second lot, that new proposed lot, a rear lot is a lot that does not have frontage on an improved road, or which, if it does have frontage, this is proposed to have frontage, is not of such shape that some portion of the required square is located within the area required for setback from a street line. So because the required square is not within the setback from the street line on the 20 feet that does front, it is by definition a rear lot.
Got it.
And then that, okay, is that correct?
Yes.
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 Yeah,
Right.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Parker.
You've referred to this differently. Would it be different if it were, you're saying access as opposed to an easement? If it were an easement to the rear property, would that change the condition?
Easement is the property right that is required, or the connection or the property right, that 20-foot easement. So that creates legal rights and rights in property. You're giving up certain rights by virtue of an easement. That's one thing. And I'm distinguishing an access way or a driveway. And I think your subdivision regulations, a fair reading, is that these two lots would be separate driveways. And this plan only provides a single driveway. So then moving to the second sentence of 2.1.1.6, that refers to when, in the opinion of the Commission, the 20-foot access way to a rear lot is sufficiently distant from a public street to make fire protection or any other public service to the home site difficult, without entry upon such access way, then the access way shall be graded in accordance with the construction plan and profile approved by the town engineer. I don't know the degree to which the applicant did that. I didn't get that from the initial presentation, so I would bring that to the Commission's attention at this point. Then the third sentence is said access way, and again, this lends credence to the argument that this is a driveway. It's the driveway that the regulations refer to. So said access way shall be constructed. And for example, you would not construct an easement. So the driveway will be constructed in accordance with section 3.3.1 and 3.3.2 of these subdivision regulations, and it refers to the depth of the subbase and, in other words, the pavement or the support for the pavement. And so it lays out some standards, and I don't know that the applicant complied with that, or there's nothing in the applicant's plan that led me to believe that the driveway complied. They didn't provide that kind of profile for this entire access way. And then it also says, such improvements shall be made along the entire length of the access way and shall be at least 16 feet in width. And I would submit that as it is proposed, the driveway is not 16 feet in width, and certainly it gets very narrow in here and in this area on the eastern end of the proposed rear lot. And I guess the last piece is your subdivision regulations refer to concerns of safety and those kinds of concern for access And I think that the reason that your regulations require those standards for construction of driveways is that obviously fire engines and emergency vehicles can be quite heavy. And so there is concern that driveways be wide enough for access for getting into a site, but also that they can support the kinds of safety vehicles that are needed. And this is a pretty long run, and I don't know, this seems like a pretty tough access for a fire truck to get to this 8,700 square foot house. So for those reasons, we would submit that the proposed subdivision does not meet your subdivision regulations, and we would urge the commission to deny this application. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public who wishes to comment? Any other member of the public who wishes to comment on this application? Hearing none, Attorney Fitzpatrick.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of items. Number one, whether there's one apartment or two apartments in the old onion barn is immaterial to a subdivision application. It may be subject of a zoning violation down the line or not. I didn't spend a great deal of time researching that issue, but that is not relevant to this application. Number two, in terms of the variance for these two houses, off-site, what's off-site has nothing to do with my application before this commission. In addition, there was a variance for two dwellings. That variance was recertified, and as the commission may well be aware, variances were made permanent at some point in time statutorily, so that variance is in all likelihood statutorily permanent, and then you don't need to get anything extended. The discussion of the rear lot and the private access way for the rear lot. There's 40, first of all, it's pre-existing non-conforming. If it is non-conforming, it's pre-existing non-conforming. This exists in its present configuration and has for many, many, many years. In 1927, that house, the onion barn, was under construction and the residence right next door. Secondly, the proposal, Mike, where's our plan?
Could I interrupt you there?
Yes.
If you're on the first point, you're moving to the second point?
Yes, Commissioner Wagner.
So if it is a pre-existing condition, is it your position that the current condition, the access way serves one rear lot or two?
I think in all likelihood two, but there's a 40-foot right-of-way, and each lot requires 20 feet.
So, because that was a point that I was trying to make with Attorney Green as to whether he believed the existing conditions satisfied 2.1.1.6 or not, the first sentence. And I believe his argument was that the current condition, the access way serves one rear lot, and that is the Shard lot. I mean, personally, at this point in my consideration, I'm not concerned about the variances and the one residential unit or two or three or whatever. I don't think that that's necessary to have this point. So it's his position that the current condition serves one interior rear lot, the Shard lot, because the applicant's property has full frontage on Sasko Hill.
Correct.
So if the pre-existing condition, do you agree with that or disagree with that?
No, I agree with that.
Okay, so if it's pre-existing condition and the access way serves one rear lot, then how do you respond to the proposed condition making that condition worse by now proposing to serve two rear lots?
Well, first of all, there will be no additional use of the right-of-way. There will actually be less use of the right-of-way than was the case 2 years ago, or a year ago, because the new home will be accessing by a separate driveway from Sasko Hill. Your house will no longer have 2 apartments.
Right. Yeah,
So-
I'm not concerned, or, right now, I'm not concerned about the number of residential units on the lots, because the regulation doesn't speak to residential units, it speaks to lots. So, I guess my question fairly pointedly is, will the proposed conditions result in the access way serving more than one rear lot?
I think the answer is yes, but there's 40 feet here. You only need 20 feet for each lot, so to speak. And we're not going to attach that 20 feet to the charred property because they don't own it.
Right, you
They've
can't,
got
you have
an
no
easement.
control over that, right.
But I have 2, or if you say there are 2 lots being served, yes, but one of them, there's only one parcel of property, and it has a 40-foot access on Sasko Hill. It conforms.
And that's the line in the upper left-hand corner of, I think you're on the same map I am, which shows a 41.41 feet.
Yes.
And that's the 41 feet of frontage on Sasko Hill.
Yes.
There are 2 accesses though, each 20 feet.
Well,
There could be, except for
Where is
the
the 40 feet?
40 feet is from here to here.
Oh, there is, so that becomes wider because somebody said that was 18 feet.
No, they are
before.
talking about the pavement as opposed to the access way
Oh,
itself.
I see, okay, all right.
So under that position, you could have a 60-foot driveway and throw one more lot in the back, have a third lot. Or if it was 80 feet wide, you can have a 4th lot.
I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Chairman.
is it,
That's essentially what you're arguing, because it's
Yeah.
40 feet, it's 2 parallel
Well, I
access
don't
ways.
know,
And that's what I'm trying to
it's
wrestle
an
with. that
unusual
concept.
situation where this entity doesn't have an ownership right, legal title out to the street. When you'll see innumerable subdivisions, primarily in Greenfield, where there's 2 shared driveways, 20 feet, 20 feet, they branch off. It's not unusual at all.
Each access must be 20 feet. And so you have that.
There's a 40-foot access to serve, in essence, 2 rear lots.
So,
One has an ownership interest, the other does not, has an easement interest.
so in actuality, both those lots will each have the adequate access way.
Correct.
no, but I don't think we're talking about this the right way. It's not each rear lot needs 20 feet of space for access. It's that the middle lot under 2.1.1.4, whether it has the required portion of frontage in the required square on the lot is located within the required for setback from a street line. I guess that's what I'm struggling with, as a definition, whether it's a rear lot or not.
Clearly, when this lot is cut,
Yeah,
it's a rear lot. It's square, it's not within the street frontage
Good.
of Sasko Hill.
all right,
Rear lots are permitted in the AAA zone. You need a 20-foot access. It has it.
right.
If you want to make Mr. Green's point, this parcel back here should have 20 feet access as well. That's why we made it 40.
Well, I don't think that his point is that it requires an additional 20 foot of access. I think his point is that that is a second rear lot being served by the same access way. I'm just trying to understand what the other side of the coin is.
Your commission permitted the subdivision of this parcel whenever, 1985, 1987, with this arrangement. They do not have fee simple access to Sasko Hill.
Right.
They have an easement.
And at that point, there was a single access way serving that one rear lot.
Correct.
And now we're proposing to serve 2 rear lots with the same access way.
Except that that access way is 40 feet.
It's 20 feet are required for each access way.
Let the
We
applicant
don't,
argue his point.
I'm sorry, yeah, I don't think we need to debate with each other that. I think we just, myself, I just want to understand your argument, Mr.
Right.
Fitzpatrick, about it, just how you interpret the, because Mr. Green, was clear, and eventually we got around to what he thought was the reason why it didn't comply. I just wanted to understand from you why it does, why that is not just a single access way, regardless of how wide it is. I just want to understand your argument.
What I'd like to do,
Not debate it with you.
Mr. Chairman, this is a point that I'd like the opportunity to spend more time on. It's a point that clearly is important to the commission. It involves definitions. It's not something that I feel that I'm doing my client the best service by trying to answer it. I've tried to answer it, and I haven't been successful. I don't think necessarily. I'd like the opportunity to do so.
So you're asking us to keep the hearing open, so
I
we
am.
may continue with that, and then, I don't have any problem with that. Does anyone have any further questions, or, I think we framed the issue pretty well here. It's a very complicated issue.
Yeah.
I
And
understand.
an unusual issue for this committee, for the
One
town.
question.
Yes.
When I was on the site and looking around, there were some magnificent old beach.
Commissioner Parker, they're not picking you up on TV. The microphone's off. They're close. Thank you.
Is it on? Yeah, now it is. When I was looking at the property, there were these magnificent old beech trees, large beech trees. Will any of this remove?
I think these beech trees have been identified here and here on the lot, and every effort will be made to save them.
Thank you.
My client appreciates those trees as well. Thank you very much. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. We will hold, yes, Commissioner Green, or Attorney Green?
If I may, just, if there are new materials submitted...
You will have an opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
But not for argument. Pure argument, he's in his rebuttal, only if there's new evidence submitted, right?
And then, right, and then you'll be limited to that on your cross. Thank you. Next item is 452 Brookside Drive, subdivision application of the Benevolent Protective Order of Elks, number 2220, Inc., for 3 lots in an A zone. Attorney Goddard. Sure. Do you need a podium, or do you want to set something up? We'll give you a minute. Who's doing 289 Hyundai Avenue? Do you have a podium with you? An easel with you? No? Okay. Well, you can use a chair if you want. Just use a chair, it's fine, yeah. An easel? That's theirs, I believe. Yeah, just take your time to set it. Yeah, no, that's fine. Jerry will help you there.
Can you guys see this?
We can't, thank you. Yeah, you okay on the camera? You want to adjust it maybe? See if you got it? You need to. If not, if you want to put the chair on the table, it's fine too, Jerry, if that helps. Get a better view. Oh, we can still see it that way. You okay, Jerry? Wait a second, I got the camera going in. Let's start up again. We are set. Again, we're going to begin the public hearing, 452 Brookside Drive, subdivision application of the Benevolent Protective Order of Elks, number 2220, Inc., for 3 lots in A zone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Pete Gelderman. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Quattrell and Rizzio, which is at One Post Road in Fairfield. And I represent the applicant tonight, the Benevolent Protective Order of Elks. In all likelihood, most of you are familiar with this property. It's right on Sant Mortar Road. It's been the existing Elks location for a number of years. and it is going to continue to be the Elks location if this subdivision application is approved. What the Elks are doing is taking the northerly toe of this property and looking to add 2 residential lots. The lots will both conform in all respects to the zoning regulations. They have the required frontage, they have the required square, they have the required lot area. We have in our application also, since the subject came up earlier tonight, provided for sidewalks, and are not asking for any sort of a waiver from those. So, but at any rate,
One second, we have,
I apologize for the interruption. I should have had it. Sir. The subdivision map remains.
The map varies,
This is just the engineering. You have a set, but these have been revised subsequent to the packet. They are reflective of the.
no problem.
you're proposing, Attorney Geldman, sidewalks on both, I gotta get the streets, this is one of the most confusing configuration of streets, on both Samp Mortar and Samp Mortar. Because Samp Mortar actually wraps around the
It does,
property.
it
as
does,
does Brookside.
and yes, and the sidewalk goes up to the property line, around on Samp Mortar as it goes around to the south,
Okay,
and also Brookside Drive.
thank you.
By the way, the plans that Jim just handed out to you, you're not going to see much of a difference between those plans and the plans that you previously had in your packet. This set of plans, the town engineer had a couple of comments with respect to drainage, and so our engineer, Ron Ockman, incorporated those comments into the revised set of plans. But it'd be kind of like a Where's Waldo? You could look long and hard and not be able to find the changes, but they're in there. He's basically complied with those suggestions of the town engineer. So anyway, a little bit about the Elks, just for some background. The Elks are a organization that basically is a community service type of organization. They raise money, they give out scholarships, they do a lot of things for the community, and the Elks has existed as an organization since just after the Civil War. Started in New York, now the headquarters are in Chicago, but there are a lot of local chapters of the Elks, and their purpose is community service, and that's what this club does as well. One of the reasons, unfortunately, that this property is that we're looking to subdivide this property is because of financial conditions that exist these days. It's difficult for everybody, so these 2 lots, if the Elks can subdivide their property and develop these 2 lots, sell them to a builder, then they can, it'll further their goal of raising money for students in the community. So that's really what's driving this ship. Now, essentially, I don't think there's a lot that I need to say here. Like I said, there are no waivers being requested. The lots comply with the regulations in every respect. The existing building will remain where it is. You can see where the parking lot is now. It'll stay there. There's some of the parking lot where the lots will be, they'll lose, but there's still ample parking for the Elks Club use on the remaining, what we call Lot 3 on the plan. Access to the 2 lots, to the 2 new lots, will be right onto Samp Mortar Road. They're relatively level lots toward the street. There's an incline up toward the back. There's a retaining wall proposed on Lot 1 that you can see in the engineering plans. That's also been reviewed by the town engineer. Each lot will have the required drainage on-site detention basins so that there will be no, it drains down towards Samp Mortar Road at any rate, but there are not catch basins, but galleries proposed on both lots to catch all of that runoff. So essentially, and we've been to the Conservation Commission because part of the property lies within the 144-foot setback from the lake. So we have gone before conservation. One of the one of the conditions that the Conservation Commission imposed on this approval was that there not be any blasting for the two lots, lots 1 and 2, simply because of their proximity to the dam on the lake. So I don't think there's much more that I can say, other than I think we've complied with your regs, and since the commission acts in an administrative capacity, obviously, as you know, when you're reviewing subdivision applications, I would respectfully suggest that this should be approved.
Commissioner
How long has your client owned the property?
Since I looked at the deed, I think it's 1970, approximately. I have a couple members of the Elks here, but it's been a long time.
I've driven that area often, and that is a turn coming down. They're the same roads, so it's hard to say which one it is. But coming down, that's like a hairpin turn with a stop sign with very bad line of sight.
The driveway is located, obviously, to the southerly end of Lot 1, which is what you're talking about. So it's furthest away from that curve. And you're right, it is a curve, as opposed to an intersection per se, but since the road is the same. But I think the stop sign there, you're talking about somebody coming north, up Sant Mortar Drive, I assume.
They're both Sant Mortar.
Yeah, this one.
Yes.
Yeah, you're talking about somebody, going north to this intersection right here. And the driveway will be located on this property over here. So I think there's sufficient distance between the driveway and that curve.
I'm not questioning the driveway. I'm questioning the line of sight, and now you're putting a house there. I would also question why it wasn't cleaned out in the past with the trees so that there'd be better line of sight. But you haven't done that.
Well, the answer to that question is, it will be a better line of sight if that condition
Not if there's
exists
a
now.
house in the way.
Well, the house won't be within that triangle of that corner that creates a sight problem at all. The proposed house is located in an area that's not going to create a sightline problem there. If you draw a line between the two Sant Mortar Drives, and abutting, where one point touches the house.
When there are other subdivisions, people come in with actual diagrams showing line of sight. You have none. So now you're saying,
Well, we can come back with a line of sight. I don't think the commission has a regulation with respect to that, do they? A specific number?
It would go by the rate of speed on the other road and how far you need to look because of the rate of speed. Mr. Barrett's is usually the one who knows the actual numbers.
No, I know there's sightline info in there. This is
adequate sightlines have to be provided. I think, I don't know that this is the right answer. I think what Mr. Jacobs may be saying is that what are the sightlines for the driveway specifically, like, can you see 150 feet, 200 feet? We don't know from these diagrams what the sightlines are from the driveway in terms of stopping distance or intersection sight distance.
Let me just look at one of Ron's plans.
It has to be adequate.
Yeah. You ever try to make that turn?
You're talking about the site.
Exactly.
Well, he's coming out this way.
He's coming up there, but see, from here. I got back this way. Try to be here, try to make a left, and try to see cars coming out.
Well, that's existing conditions. I know you're not really talking to me, but we can certainly provide that information, but I think if you look at the map, to the extent there are trees or any other obstructions within that triangle created by the two Sant Mortar Drive roads, that will be cleared out as part of the as part of the subdivision. And the house is certainly set far enough to the southerly part of that lot that well, we can get that information. I have no doubt that there's not going to be a sightline issue there.
Mr. Barrett has the,
Yeah, we usually cite 2.1.4.4, Attorney Gelderman, which is safe and adequate sightlines. And there's guidelines by the state about even driveway sightline distance is what they need to do.
Right.
And anything that intersects a public road.
Yeah, I think...
I'm not saying it doesn't have it, I'm saying I
Right.
don't know what they are.
I think that the reason that the line wasn't shown on there was because, probably because in our view, it was apparent that that sight line is going to be improved. It's not going to have any negative impact on that sight line whatsoever. A house located where it's shown on the plan. So, but if the commission needs us to supply that info, we certainly can do that.
My other question for you is, you said there would be adequate parking. Adequate parking in what way? Are you saying that there are the right number of parking spaces for the square footage that is in the building, or that you feel there's adequate parking to deal with who goes there? Because there is, in a building, a required number of parking spaces per square foot.
Yeah, there is, and this parking lot isn't really lined all that much right now. This isn't a site plan for the Elks Club, so we haven't laid out the parking lot with lines and number of spaces for the Elks Club. But the area that's being subdivided was not really part of that park. There was a little piece of it that extended in, but not utilized for parking for the Elks. So it's not going to have an impact on the Elks Club parking existing.
You're still not, you're taking part of a parking away, and you're not telling us how many spaces you will have left for the building.
Okay,
So you
but
could
that's
make
not
your
part of a
building-
subdivision application. It might be in your mind relevant, but that's a site plan issue. That's not a subdivision application issue. It's a pre-existing, non-conforming, or whatever it is, it's got existing parking.
It could be conforming now, and you might be making it non-conforming.
we can't allow you to subdivide a property in such a way that an existing commercial building that has enough parking, we can't subdivide the entire parking lot into whatever, and then have the applicant say, well, I don't have any more parking, it's because you guys approved a subdivision, that's why we have no parking here. I think the point is that the drawing Commissioner Jacobs is suggesting should have the parking drawn into it to show us. Maybe it does, even as it's subdivided, have plenty of parking for that number of square footage, but one can't tell looking at the drawing. Practical and regulations are two different things. Practically, there may be, the public will have a chance in a second.
Yeah.
Hold on. But practically, there may be plenty of parking. We all drive by and know how much parking is there, but should the Elks next month decide to sell this to, I don't know, to some other group, for a club, there may not be enough parking, and it may violate the regs. So I think that maybe that's something you should look at along with the site lines.
We could show those spots, yes,
Drawn in, yeah.
based on the square footage of the building and the
Is that
usage.
your client, or is that a member of the public?
Well, yes, she's part of the client. She's
So
one of my clients,
Ask your
yes.
attorney, he'll tell you when, he'll let you.
You will in a couple seconds. Okay, and like I said, I mean, it's a small strip here that's actually part of Lot 2. But I understand your question, whether it's 2 spaces in there or no spaces in there, you want to know how this affects the parking layout on the existing house. So we can do a parking layout, we can show that.
Commissioner Neely, you had a question?
Yes, having served on the Conservation Commission during this time, the question that...
Commissioner Neely, could you toot the microphone over you to the TV? Thank you.
Thank you. Having served on the Conservation Commission during the time that this came up, the question is, now that I see the site plan and the house proposal, there's so much rock ledge there, I don't see how there can be 2 building lots that are flat enough.
Well,
without blasting.
There won't be any blasting. As you know, that's a condition of your prior approval.
But how are you going to get the rock ledge out of it?
It'll have to be jackhammered. That's how they get it out when they can't blast. If you take a look at, you're looking at the at the survey, but if you look at the site plan, which is, or even the proposed grading and utility plan, which is probably better, it's drawing 3 of 4 on the big sheets. That's where you can see, actually drawing 3 shows the location of the houses.
Oh, I'm just looking at the,
This is the road. Well, actually, this is the 64 feet here. This shows.
I just think it's way only going up to there, it's 65.
That map shows the contours of the property after the development. That's where the retaining wall will be located. You can see that behind the
yeah, I can
the
see
house.
that,
So,
yeah.
so the only area that needs to be brought down is where the house is, and it's not really as much as it looks. It goes from 56 feet to goes up to the on the side. There's a little 64-foot jog, but basically it's 58, 56 feet in there between the driveway and the house, relatively flat. And then you can see the topographic lines where the house is located. And they go from about 68 to, 68 to
69, it says.
to 64. So it's not a
64 to
huge,
69.
it's not a huge cut. A lot of that rock is behind the house that doesn't have to be cut out. And that's the same thing, the same is true on lot 2.
It's just a line?
But there's still a lot of rock ledge under the house. Are you going to have a basement? Are you going to be digging a basement, or is that going to be a,
I don't think there is going to be a basement in these houses, but
can
it doesn't,
you find that out? Because that's very, very important factor considering the location of this house.
well, whatever is done to build on that, like I said, we can't blast, and we know that. That's a condition. It was a condition imposed on us by the Inland Wetland Commission, so.
Right, I know that.
But
I know that.
It says the basement.
Oh, it does say no basement, okay. I'm sorry,
So-
I didn't.
On lot 2.
On lot 2, but not lot 1.
Lot 1, it says
No
it's gonna be
basement.
a garage. The, underneath the house is gonna be garage.
garage under, no basement on lot 2, so no basement on either lot.
Okay.
And any of the digging out that has to be there will be done by machine, but not by dynamite.
Still has an effect.
Mr. Jacobson?
Actually, my question was very similar.
Is your mic on? Your mic on? Pull it down, please.
Better? No? Okay. My question was very similar to Commissioner Neely's. I'm concerned about the proximity of the dam and even the jackhammer on the dam, but I know that conservation did say no blasting, so I didn't know what other guidelines or what other, things you're gonna do to try to protect the water. It's so close.
I think Commissioner Alessi could address this. He has
Yes, I was
some
going to
professional
actually ask
experience
him to do that.
in exactly this field.
As far as there's no blasting, that's fine. Blasting would definitely have some sort of effect on the dam. As far as the rock breaking, using of the hydraulic hammers, I'll tell you right now from my professional experience, it will have no effect whatsoever, and the vibration won't even be felt when hammering through rock 6, 7, 8 feet away from it. So there will be no other shock waves going through.
Thank you.
And that's something we should talk more about when we have different blasting applications. Gary and I talked offline a little bit about that, and there's some interesting technology out there now in lieu of the old-fashioned explosives.
I'm not sure to address the question to you or to our staff. Have all the neighbors, the abutting neighbors, been notified and consulted with about this project?
Notified, yes, I can't speak to consultant.
Okay.
There was and I don't know if any neighbors are here tonight, there might be, I don't know, but there was a fairly large number of neighbors at the inland wetland hearing. They have the Lake Association has an individual that they keep on retainer to look at effects of construction and things on the lake, and he testified, and that's, although we had agreed fairly early on that we wouldn't do blasting, that was one of his requests, that there not be blasting on the site. So, I think the answer is the neighbors, were, that was, and that, by the way, seemed to be the only, or at least it was the only concern that was voiced at inland wetlands. Obviously, their jurisdiction and your jurisdiction isn't identical, but that seemed to be the concern that the neighborhood had.
Commissioner Wagner?
Did he express a view on the jackhammering as an alternative?
Yeah, well, he said that that's the way it should be, jackhammered, not blasted. So, I mean, I have nothing else. I'm assuming we're going to continue the hearing so that we can come back.
What I was going to suggest, Attorney Gelderman, is we continue it for you to come back and present revised drawings or information concerning the issues we raised, such as sight lines and the parking lot configuration with the data for the parking spaces, given how it could be configured given the size of the lot and the number of spaces you need, the driveway width and all that. And but while we're here, I would still, if you have any clients or then there's any member of the public that wish to comment, I'll allow them so they can
No,
say
that's
back
fair.
if they like.
That's fair. If anybody, I mean,
Did you have people, part of your clients that wanted to speak or no?
not a part of a planned
Part of your
presentation, no.
That's fine.
Just
Is there any member of the public, sir, and then sir, and then ma'am? Just take a turn and come on up, doesn't matter what order. Just come up to the microphone, just tell us your name and address, and if you, and give us your comments. Again, if you have any questions of the applicant, you don't get the question of the applicant, you can raise them to the commission, and we can ask the applicant at the appropriate time.
Hi, my name is Anthony Gee, and I own the home above the Elks, 400 Samwater Drive, and I'm concerned about the lot in front of my house. I can't imagine somebody being able to build a house there with all that rock there. I don't even allow my daughter to go that way when I catch her to get on to Samwater Drive. It's
You mean by
people
car?
race up that street.
Just so we're clear, because I know for the record, Samp Mortar, this is very unusual, goes on two sides of the property.
My
This
house-
side goes
my-
on the other two sides, so.
My house is the house above Fairfield Elks, and this will affect me
On
tremendously.
the back Samp Mortar, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, just so we're clear which house, for the
Yeah.
record, we know which.
I mean, I don't know, you know, it's, I mean, I guess on the plan, it's right there. That's my house. So when I found out that, I mean, I have a really nice, well, in the winter I have a nice beautiful lake. In the summer I don't because of the trees, but, you know, it's gonna really change my property. I'm upset about it. I don't know what to do about it, but I'm very upset about it, and, you know, I cannot imagine somebody building a house here. I've been here 10 years, it's very rocky over there, but I don't know.
Is it steep?
It's very steep. I'm just relieved to hear there's no blasting going on, for sure.
Right, there's
So,
that-
anyway, I'm just wanting to voice my concern.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Baker.
you.
Sir?
Good evening. My name is Kurt Goddard. I live at 411 Santwater Drive with my wife, a little above the hill from Anthony. We're homeowners and then also members of the Lake Hills Association, which is a private nonprofit that owns the lake and the dam, about 515 homes. I'd like to make 3 points. The first is I applaud the commission for detailed knowledge of the area. The ledge is certainly an issue. I'm glad to hear it's no blasting. If this is approved and there's jackhammering, I would ask that the size of the jackhammer be limited. I think it's going to be very disruptive, and if it's a jackhammer on a small bobcat, that's very different than a big hydraulic excavator coming in. And frankly, I'm concerned about vibrations for basements as well as the dam. The second point, I'm encouraged to hear the sidewalks. I would ask that if the commission approves it, that is a condition with concrete. There is a sidewalk now, it's suboptimal.
So that's encouraging. And the third point is, Mr. Jacobs, I think you are right on with line of sight, and I think that does need to be something that's considered when you're coming down Sant Mortar and then making a left towards the Elks Club. It is a rather interesting intersection, to say the least. And certainly you wouldn't want landscaping or a house blocking that, because it would be a safety issue. And frankly, as my neighbor Anthony said, it would be a very interesting driveway to be pulling out of for where these houses are. So, you know, there is that safety aspect as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, are you going to? Is there any other member of the public that wishes to speak at this time? Hearing none, I'll just continue the hearing now, or did you want to address? Just continue. What I'll do is I will keep this hearing open. The members of the public, we're keeping the hearing open. The applicant is going to submit some additional paperwork, some additional information to us regarding sight lines, as well as parking lot issues, and we'll present again at a continued hearing. So we will continue this hearing for further date. And we have one final item on public hearing, 289 Hunyadi Avenue, subdivision application of 289 Hunyadi LLC for 2 lots in the B zone. And I'll give you a minute to set up for that. I was new on it too. Jay, you got the other camera?
Very old.
That's a loss from my house.
2009.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Again, this is the public hearing for 280. We're going to begin the public hearing for 289 Hunyadi Avenue, subdivision application of 289 Hunyadi LLC for 2 lots in the B zone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Dave Quattrella, lawyer with Quattrella and Rizzio. Our offices are at One Post Road in Fairfield. We're representing 289 Hunyadi LLC. This is a Connecticut limited liability company, the sole member of which is Brett Sherman. Mr. Sherman is with me this evening. He's sitting in the second row with the blue jacket. Mr. Sherman is also a Fairfield resident. He resides at 165 Hanford Drive. The applicant purchased this property in October of last year in 2012. It was purchased from the estate of Gracie and Tivadar, and had been in that family for a number of years, I believe, since the time the house was built in 1956. The applicant is seeking to subdivide this property into 2 lots. One lot would be the minimum lot size, which is 6,000 square feet. The second lot would be 9,000 square feet. The lot is 15,000 square feet in size. So this subdivision would create two conforming lots. It meets all your zone development standards. There's an existing one-family residence on the property now. If you look on the survey that was submitted with the application, you'll see the structure is what will be referred to as Lot A. Lot A is the 6,000 square foot lot. Lot B is the 9,000 square foot lot. In order to subdivide the property, it's necessary to remove an existing attached garage. This is a it's a Cape Cod style house, 2 stories. It has a 2-car attached garage with an attic, undeveloped attic area located over the garage. So regardless of how we divide the property to create the 2 lots, under either scenario, the garage would have to be removed, and that would obviously be a condition of subdivision approval. This would not impact the present viability of the house. The living area of the house right now is not in the portion that would be demolished. This is a level lot, very flat, sloped slightly from rear to front. I believe is about a 4-foot change in grade from the rear of the property to the front. The application has been reviewed, obviously, by the administrative departments. There has been correspondence submitted which should be in your file. However, I do have copies from engineering, conservation, and the sewer commission, none of which have any concerns about the development. There are public sewers in the road. Interestingly, in the 1950s, which is when I believe the sewers were put in the road and constructed, there was a stubbing provided for a second home on this lot, which is existing. So there would be a hookup already available for a lateral, should your commission see fit to approve the subdivision.
Mr. Barrett?
Yes, Mr. Quattrella, just interested in the division of the lot with the 6,000 and 9,000. On the Lot B, the 9,000 square foot parcel, is it intended to put a one-family home or a two-family home, or that's not really part of the application?
The decision hasn't been made yet. Mr. Sherman has not submitted any plans for a house because he doesn't know what he's going to build. There's definitely a possibility it would be a two-family, a duplex, which is permitted in the Residence B zoning district, as you're aware. It may also be a single-family home. He didn't start marketing the property yet for the lot for either sale or development. He may actually keep the home if he builds a two-family and rent it. If he does a single-family, he may sell the lot or he may develop a single-family home. He felt it was putting the cart a little bit before the horse to start doing that until the subdivision approval was granted.
But the current lot size that he purchases exactly 15,000 square feet?
Yes, correct.
Exactly.
Yes. That's according to our surveyor. And we have the exact measurements here are...
Because I would say 1 inch less and you can't put one family home and one two-family home on that property.
I've worked with Richard Blaine in the past. He's pretty good surveyor. He's experienced. I have no reason to believe that it's not the size that he's determined. It really should be a coincidence because this subdivision was from 1914. At that time, there was actually 6 building lots because that predates your zoning regulations. And each of the, what I would consider small spaghetti lots, that we refer to them in our profession, you know, at the time, they might have been able to build a very small home on. They were all identical in size.
Sure.
So it's not unusual that it works out to be a 15,000.
Yeah, I mean, actually back then, they were usually 5,000. They were 50 by 100 lots where you could...
Well, back in 1914, I do a lot of work in Bridgeport. In Bridgeport, the lots were very small like that, and they would oftentimes put a duplex straddling 2 of those lots. So, yes, sir.
In reading the notes on the subdivision map, going back to your comment about the 1914 arrangement, the notes say that this, although it contains multiple lots, was partitioned. So is the land title history or land record history of this that the lots were never merged? It was just one large development that they subsequently partitioned?
Well, there's only one tax bill for the property, so at some point along the way, they were merged. I didn't represent Mr. Sherman when he bought the property, so I don't have a detailed title search going back to the 1914 era, but I do have a copy of the search that was done over the last 60 years, and over the last 60 years, it's been one combined lot with one house located on it. It may be beneficial for you to see the tax assessor's map, which shows all of Hunyadi Street, because we did a survey of the entire street, and I'll pass it. Let me pass it out, and then I'll give you the statistics, if I might. Excuse me.
No, just your...
They want to charge you for breaking something. Thank you.
I'll explain what we highlighted in a moment. count, there's 44 properties on Hunyadi Avenue, and 23 of them are 1 acre in size or thereabouts, meaning they're 6,000 square feet or slightly larger. That's 23 out of the 44. 12 of the properties are 0.2 of an acre or thereabouts, which would be like a 9,000 square foot lot. So between the 23 that are 0.1 and the 12 that are 0.2, we have 35 out of the 44 lots would fall into this, pretty much the exact size of these 2 lots that we're proposing to create. The remaining lots, there's 7 that are 0.3 of an acre or thereabouts, 1 that are 0.4, and 1 that are 0.5. These are all houses on Hunyadi. That 0.3 of an acre size, which is where we are right now, our total lot size here is 0.34 acres, and there's a total of 7 of those presently existing on Hunyadi, 1 of which is ours. So to create the 2 lots that we're proposing is really the norm on the street, not the exception, and in complete keeping with the character of the neighborhood. This street is a primarily single-family, but there are a number of 2-family residential dwellings, including directly across the street from the subject property are 2-family homes, duplexes.
Commissioner Jacobs has a question, and then Commissioner Wagner.
Actually, mine is for staff. Question for staff. This looks like a cul-de-sac. What's our maximum number of houses per cul-de-sac?
10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, 25, 26, 27. Like 27?
Yeah, I think that only pertains to this street. Hunyadi actually has access, it runs all the way from Jennings to that cul-de-sac, and you have Riccozzi and Andrassy intersecting it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but I didn't think that the maximum on a cul-de-sac pertained to a street that had multiple sources of access besides one point of entry.
Well, Barrows is...
The question because does it become a cul-de-sac at the
Cul-de-sac
intersection of Barrows under our definition? At that point, Hyundai heading, I guess that's north from Barrows?
Has no other
I
access.
could be wrong, but I think that's what distinguishes that from the rule that you're quoting, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wagner?
Elevated. Are you proposing, well, I guess you're not proposing a house on the A lot. My question is out of context, but is there proposed to be a garage?
Yes, the new home would have a garage.
What
yes.
about the home on Lot A that is now having a garage that's being removed?
It would not have a garage. It would just have the driveway parking.
Just driveway?
Yeah. It's required two spaces for a single-family residence.
Right.
We could probably fit 4 in that driveway, I'm told, by our engineer.
So it's 2 side by side. I believe our new regulations require that you can't count landlocked spaces, right? So
Right.
one in the garage.
It could fit 2 side by side. I believe it's either 15 or 16 feet wide.
Okay. And is there on-street parking on Hunyadi?
Yes, there is, yes. Yeah, one of the things we are requesting, we do realize that your regulations give you the discretion in the B resident zone to require sidewalks. I'd like to bring to the Commission's attention, by my calculations, there isn't a sidewalk for a half a mile. There are no sidewalks on Hunyadi. It's all grass to the curb. I do have a letter to submit pursuant to Section 4.0 of your Subdivision Regulations requesting a waiver of the, of your discretionary requirement for sidewalks. I believe it's not mandatory because this is not a new street, but certainly you do have the discretion in this zone on an existing street to require sidewalks. We just feel that it would be actually out of keeping with the neighborhood because there are literally virtually no sidewalks. So the other request I was going to make also as a waiver of your regulations would be a temporary waiver or a deferral. As I understand it, the garage definitely needs to be demolished in order to develop the 2 lots. As I understand it, the garage would have to be demolished prior to the time that we file the subdivision map, which there's a 90-day requirement, which I understand could be extended twice for an additional 90 days each for 270 days. Since the applicant has not yet determined whether a single family or a 2-family is going to be built on the other lot, and he's been renovating the house now to modernize it, put in a new kitchen, and improve the aesthetics of its interior. He's almost ready to lease the house, to rent it, and we were hoping to defer the necessity of taking the garage down until such time as he would apply for a building permit. I realize it's an unusual request, but we are asking for a waiver, and I believe that would be allowed under Section 4.0 of your subdivision regulations.
So not just the 90 plus 90, but until such time as he
As-
files a building permit?
For a building permit, yes. Because that would allow the, otherwise, what would happen is, even with 270 days, if he signs a 1-year lease, he would have to be demolishing the garage while potentially a tenant is in the house. Not impossible to do, but certainly disruptive to the tenant.
Well, you would imagine that probably every developer would love to have that.
Well, I don't know, well, I don't think so, because, the idea here is to develop it, not to just land bank a building lot.
Well, keep your options open and exploit the land, until such time as you choose to, build. What's the basis for the request for deferral?
The fact that he wants to rent the house, and he's close to having a tenant for the house, 270 days, which would be the maximum, as I understand it, requesting extensions, would still require him to be demolishing the garage while the tenant is occupying the house. It's a request that certainly, if that's not to be the justification to deny it. If in all other respects you're content with the application and the commission doesn't see fit, and I realize we need 3/4 of the commission to approve it.
We can discuss that
Yeah.
during our deliberative process. I mean,
The other thing would be to ensure that it happens, we would have no problem making that part of the bond, to bond the cost of the demolition. This is just simply an attempt to, avoid disruption to the occupant of the house, because, it's winter, the house hasn't been designed. It more than likely will be more than 270 days before we would be able to pull a building permit.
Well, there's a reason that those kinds of regulations are on the books, right? I mean, we want to have current plans with people who are, actively developing property. And the other solution would be for him to come back at such time as he's ready to develop, with another application.
Well, again, I said it's a cart before the horse idea. We need to know that it's approved before he's going to hire an architect and move forward with the plans. Again, as I said, that's not to be a justification for denying. If it's a question of denying it or not denying it on that issue, I certainly can represent that Mr. Sherman is okay with that remaining a condition of the, but I do have, since it needs to be in writing, I did do a letter.
Are you going to change topics, or are you still on the garage?
Excuse me?
Are you changing topics?
No, the same topic, the
Okay, go
two
ahead.
waivers of the I have the letter request for the, under that section of the regulation, just on what we've been talking about.
Yes, but you can just submit that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Additional copies
You just hand them to Commissioner Neely, she'll pass them around, save you the walking. I think Commissioner Parker, I think, has a question.
Yeah, I was at the property yesterday, and again, it's a very, very tiny lot. I understand why you have to tear down the garage. I also didn't see surveyor's markers at all, because the property to the north, towards the cul-de-sac, there appears to be some sort of a step or wall along there, and it wasn't clear where the sideline for the property was.
Yeah, there is an iron pipe at the front left corner,
There is, okay.
The engineering, one of the engineering comments was about the monuments. They're now shown on the survey. There was an original survey submitted, which was then modified at the request of engineering.
Okay, and the two families are on much larger lots. I mean, this is a very tiny lot.
Yeah, not all the two families are on larger lots.
Okay.
The 9,000 square feet is the minimum required under the your regulations for Residence B. So each of these lots do meet the minimum lot size requirements. And as I was saying on I didn't get to mention this, but on the assessor's map that I handed out, the yellow highlighted lot is the subject property at 289 Hunyadi. The orange lots are the lots that are approximately 0.1 acres in size or thereabouts. Just to understand, the surveyor shows the 6,000 square foot lot as being 0.137 acres. So those orange lots are, for the most part, 6,000 square feet or thereabouts.
Okay.
Some are slightly larger, but some are actually 6,000 square feet, which is the minimum in the Residence B zoning district. So as I said earlier on, the intention here is to have two conforming lots that meet all of your zone development standards. We can fit the 60-foot square in the properties. We comply with all the setbacks. There's no wetlands on this property. We're not in the wetlands jurisdiction. There's a letter in the file from Conservation signed by Ned Jacobson to that effect. There's public sewers. This really is completely in keeping with really literally all the homes in the neighborhood.
Do most of the single-family homes on the 0.13 acres have garages or not?
I didn't do a survey of that. I don't have the answer. Sorry.
They do. I've walked the street. I walked the street many times. It's right near where I live, and most of the single-family homes have garages.
Thank you. This time we'll go to public comment. If there's any member of the public who would like to comment on this application, you may come up to the podium, just give us your name and address, and speak to us. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Katie Collins. I live at 162 Country Road, which is directly behind the current house that's standing there. And this is Phil Ambrosino as well. He lives in the home 160, which is also more behind the open lot. And our only question was just, and one of you guys had brought this up earlier about the exact lot size. Is it exactly 9,000? Is it exactly 6,000? We live on a lot that has two homes as well, so we recognize that there are two-family homes in the neighborhood. But just given the size of our lot, and I don't have the exact numbers on me, but it is bigger, and it still feels really small. Our only question is, it's a nice open lot, and I recognize the desire to develop it. It's just to put two homes on there, which obviously seems the intention, given why they're doing 6 and 9, which, makes sense, but is there then going to be a cramped, crowded feeling of these two small homes crammed onto a small lot in the neighborhood? So I guess our question was just to make sure that it really was the 6 and 9,000. That was our main question.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public who wishes to speak? Hearing none. Attorney Quattrella.
Well, as I stated earlier, I have nothing to rebut. I certainly don't have any objection to the neighbors wanting to know what we're going to do, and Mr. Sherman has tried to been upfront with that. He has talked to a lot of the neighbors, although he opted not to go out and solicit a formal petition. But as I said earlier, this in all respects conforms with your regulations. There's a lot of case law, and you're aware of that, I'm sure, that when a parcel of land can be subdivided and the two lots can in all respects comply with your subdivision regulations, zone development standards, your commission is supposed to act in an administrative capacity to approve it. And I say that with all due respect, and I encourage you to please do so. to approve the subdivision. Mr. Sherman is a Fairfield resident, has been for a number of years. I mean, his desire is to, do something nice. He's already been renovating the existing home. His intent truly is undetermined at this point with the other lot, and he very well may build a two-family and keep it and rent it. He has got a young family, and this is, in his mind, something that would be a good thing to own. It's a very nice neighborhood. A lot of residents have been there a number of years, he that wants to do something nice and good for the neighborhood. This is not going to be a junk house and something that's not going to be out of keeping with the neighborhood. So we respectfully request that you approve the subdivision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This will now close the public hearing on 289 and Hunyadi Avenue. And there being no further business on our agenda for this evening, this will conclude the meeting.